Welcome to this episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a Matter of the Heart. This is May of 2022, and we are sharing stories of courageous women, post-abortion, miscarriage, or loss of a child who are coming on. So every day there's a new story, either told in first person or third person in the month of May of 2022, titled Sharing the Secret. So if you're listening to this in the future, this is what is going on. So look for more videos, and whoever you resonate with, connect with. How to connect with each guest is in the description. And today we have the beautiful Nikki Franklin. She is an educator with aromatherapy, which is a beautiful modality, very similar to what I do for those of you who know me, but she specializes in trauma, sexual trauma, and she's sharing her story on her miscarriage. So thank you so much, Nikki, for being here today, for your willingness to share. Tell us, what was life like before? What were you doing? I know we've been friends for a while, and I know you've gone through some transformation changes, and you have this awesome modality where you use Young Living essential oils to help break barriers of things. What got you into this? What got you started with all of this?
What's really funny is when I started with Young Living, I did not start for the oils. I had used so many different oils in the past, and I just never had the results that I knew they could be. And so when I started with Young Living, it's because I had been making my own cleaning products and I was tired of smelling white vinegar. So I bought their Thieves because it smelled so good. And then I was really struggling mentally at that time. Not at the time, I didn't realize like my past trauma was really hindering me. So because I thought I had moved on from it when really I had just suppressed it. And so one of my uplines in Young Living was like, hey, like buy some oils and I will send you a gift. And I was like, free gift down. And so I bought my oils, and she had recommended that I use frankincense and lemon in a capsule to help. And that was just such a huge game changer for me that I was like, yes, I absolutely need to use these, and just dove in and bought so many different, learned so much about how they can heal, or not heal, but support our emotions. And yeah, it's been 3 years now since I started with them, and my whole life has transformed in ways that I'd never even imagined. Like I look back 3 years ago and I'm like, whoa, what a hot mess.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, being in the aromatherapy world, our scent smell is so amazing. Like when we smell an oil, even if you smell like an organic flower or something, it totally changes us. I mean, scent is a very powerful one of the senses that we have, because it makes such a huge shift. And it does, like when you're focusing on it in your in the aromatherapy, when you're focusing on it, something specific that created fear or shame or guilt, it's amazing how the properties in that product and that oil, that whatever one we're going to decide to use, really helps get us to where we need to be faster.
Mhm.
I always tell my clients, you could do it without, but it's going to take a little bit longer, in my opinion. So it just depends.
Yes. And I've definitely done it without and noticed the difference in it. They really do support you and help lift your energy and transform it. And I mean, that's one reason now that I understand, I didn't understand this then, that Young Living was different, was because Gary Young, when he started the company and stuff, he put science into it, and he loves it. And he does, I mean, they do years upon years upon years of research for one plant before they even create it into an oil, to know all the different constituents, how it needs to be grown, how it needs to be extracted, or whatever that word is when you take it out of the farm. Um, and um, and so it's just like they put a lot of thought and care into it. And I mean, you could tell the difference. Like he was a genius when it came to making blends, because he knew that this constituent, I don't know if that's the proper word, or constitute, chemical compound, whatever, was the right way for this energy being brought up to this level within your body. And so he would mix them together to bring you, whatever, like joy essential oil can help mimic the actual energy that you get with joy. And so it can help raise your frequency to that. And so he's just made some amazing blends, and Young Living continues to make some epic blends. So
Yeah. How did it help support you during your pregnancy?
So during my pregnancy, to be honest, I was very disappointed. I was I was very sick through my pregnancy, and I pretty much was on bed rest for my entire pregnancy. I could barely walk. If I would walk, I would throw up. If I would move, roll over, whatever, like I was so, my morning sickness. I mean, I had morning sickness like on steroids, I guess. I forget what it was called, but it was really bad and it was really miserable. And I was, I have everybody like saying, use your oils. And I'm always the one to tell people, use your oils, because they literally have supported me that much. And I mean, I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't, supplements, water, oils, would help somewhat, and then all of a sudden I hated them. And so they weren't as helpful during my pregnancy, but they definitely were beneficial after.
Mhm.
So
So what happened? Can you would you like to share more about that?
um sure. So I was really sick, and struggling, and I had actually fought with my insurance company because oh, friggin' military insurance is a nightmare sometimes, but to try and I had to prove that I was pregnant. I couldn't drive, so I had to because I was that nauseous, that I had to get people to take me to my doctor's appointments. Well, I had to get a doctor's appointment to prove I was pregnant before they'd even refer me to an OB. The OB just, pulled me back and forth and was like, we don't have information on you. And so I was actually in my second trimester by the time I finally got to see a doctor. And when I went to see my doctor and they were checking everything out, that was a pretty bad experience in itself. I won't go into why with the doctor, but I really did not like that doctor, and I will never go back to that doctor, and I will never refer that doctor to anybody. I've never had an experience like that. But it didn't help. At the end of that appointment, we were doing an ultrasound, and my baby had no heartbeat. And so it was definitely, I don't know, when you see in like movies, like the doctor or whatever tells you something that just happened that's like life changing and super shocking, and like everything goes quiet for that person. That's
Mhm.
definitely how the moment was for me. And my
Mhm.
cousin had drove out here to be with me at my appointment, and I was just sitting there staring, and she's like, do you tell me the next steps? And she's like, do you need some time? And I'm like, what? Huh? Like, sure. I couldn't focus. And um let's see, it's been 8 months since my miscarriage, and I am just finally finding my footing again. Like
Mhm.
right before I got pregnant, I was getting ready to launch a whole coaching program, and I was so excited. And then a couple days before I went in for my doctor's appointment, I had canceled all my business stuff that I had, emails. I put my website on hold, all of it, because I couldn't work. I couldn't even take care of me, like let alone help support another woman through her endeavors. And so I was crying leading up to my appointment because I was so sad, because I've worked so hard on my business, and having to give it up was really, for now, not forever, but was really hard. And so to have that happen, and then to find out that my baby was no longer with me, and I had, like, that was the thing keeping me going every day, was imagining my reward at the end of my 9 months is holding my precious baby on my chest, doing the skin to skin. Like, I was so looking forward to holding my child. And so that was just absolutely devastating. And I didn't even realize how out of touch I was after. Like, I waited a couple months. I really tried to focus. I was like, I don't want to go back to coaching. I don't know what I want to do, honestly. And everybody's like, well, you don't have to hurry back, but I couldn't sit here all day and do nothing. So I was like, what do I do? And then I hurried and I created an epic coaching program. And I really pushed it and it didn't take off like I was imagining it would. And I took it really hard. And so then I just reflected the last couple months and I was just like, wow, like I was really just ignoring what I was feeling. And no wonder why, I couldn't have success with my coaching program because I wasn't in it for the right reason. I was just ignoring what I was feeling and trying to help others. So I used my oils throughout that a lot. I think one of my biggest oils that I used was Surrender. That was my favorite oil to help me process and stuff, but it was still hard. Like I would just sit down and I would just start crying.
Yeah.
So
And tears are definitely cleansing. How did you process it afterwards? I mean, so your cousin was there with you. Your husband was in the military, so he wasn't able to be there with you at that time physically, but obviously emotionally, and you were talking to him on the phone. I mean,
so I honestly felt guilty and I kind of blamed myself and he I didn't know how to tell him because I felt like he was going to be disappointed in me, which is silly looking back at it, like, but that's how I felt. And I didn't really cry that much after, like directly after. My cousin had to go, she doesn't live close to me, nobody lives close to me, but so she had to go because she had to go to work that night and she's a nurse and she was working a 12-hour shift that night. So she had to go back. She's like, are you going to be okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be fine. And I was still just super numb. And so that night, I guess I started crying really bad. I couldn't sleep. Every time I would fall asleep, I would wake up crying. Um, it was it was really rough. I didn't use oils at first. I did reach out to a couple of my oily friends that have been super supportive in my oily journey. And they're like, are you using your oils? And I was like, more focused on just getting my body healthy. So I wasn't even thinking about my emotional state. And I was like, no, like, what are oils? And so, they gave me recommendations. I mean, and that I don't know these things, I wasn't in the mindset to remember that, use frankincense, use release, use trauma life, use gentle baby, use all these things that could be beneficial in your healing. Frankincense. Oh, frankincense. That's my homie. So I'm trying to remember your question. Yeah, right after I called my husband finally. I didn't call him right away because I was worried that I would interrupt him at work. And he's like, you could have called me right away. And it was hard to talk to anybody. I just broke each time I said it. And I think I just hated that I was alone, like that my husband was, I just wanted to be held. And I didn't even have my husband here to hold me.
yeah.
So, I mean, everybody works, so nobody could drive out here and be with me. So it was
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. I can't even imagine because, like you have this hope, and you were quite along. Did they say that like did it happen sooner? Because is that why you were so sick?
No, I mean, it's funny because the doctor completely changed her tune and of everything that had happened. And she was just like, I'm so sorry. Please know that it wasn't your fault and there's nothing you could do. And I'm like, in the back of my head, because I'm all about getting to the root cause of things and not just fixing symptoms. And I'm sitting here in the back of my head, like, how do you know that? Like, how can you be sure? Like, you haven't done any tests, you have no idea why this was. Like, maybe it was the fact that I was so sick and couldn't keep anything down, including my prenatals, you know? And so of course, that was definitely in the back of my head. But no, I had to get surgery to remove the child because of how far along I was. I wanted to have been able to pass the baby naturally on my own. So my husband came home for emergency leave for that. And they tested the baby after to see if anything ailment wise was a problem. And they said that there was no rhyme or reason for it. Like everything looked healthy, which it's frustrating because you always want an answer to at least know why, but it seems with women with miscarriage, we don't get answers often. It just is what it is.
Right. Yeah, and
So,
that is super frustrating. Were you able to mourn the baby's death after that, or did you name the baby or have a memorial service?
so I did not name the, well, we named the baby Franklin. Um, and we did have the baby cremated and put in a little froggy. And I had learned at the funeral home, and you had actually said this to me too when I said that I got a frog. Um, that frog, choose to remember what it stands for. Can you remind me?
Forever rely on God.
Yes. And I thought that was pretty cool. And because that's all they had was a frog at the time. They were out of all the stuff, other stuff. And having the actual like frog was kind of comforting, like it helped to hold something. Um, so mourning took time, a lot longer than I thought. I literally just told a friend the other day, she's like, "You're doing really well. Like, I'm really proud of you." And I was like, "Well, I just hate that it took so long." She's like, "You can't put a timeline on healing, Nikki." And I know this, but it just, I'm such a go-getter and proactive, and I like to get stuff done, and I like to help people get stuff done. And so the fact that I was stuck, I felt stuck. And really, I needed to allow myself to go through what it had to go through what I had to go through,
Yeah,
feel.
I've learned that you never really stop. You can heal from it, but you never stop grieving. And the grieving, I don't know for you, but I know for me, it sneaks up on me when I least expect it. As a trigger that, all of a sudden I'll be like in this wonderful mood and I'll be just joy filled, and all of a sudden I'll hear something or see something, and it's like that trigger, and I get really upset and snarky. And I'm like, why did that just happen? And now I know why, but when I was going through it, I had no clue. So
Mhm.
just really tuning into that. What was the thing that, I know it's only been 8 months and you are doing fantastic to be able to come and share, and the cheers are good. And definitely cleansing. So if for someone who's going through this for the first time, like what was the one thing that helped you, that really gave you that shift, that was it just time, or was it the combination? Was there something that you did specifically?
Um, I think it would be the time and the patience.
Mhm.
Um, obviously oils, I'm not like, I will always say oils because oils have always been so helpful for me in my journey. But I know I was frustrated because I was trying to do all these things, and just looking back at all the things that I tried to do after, and I waited a couple months before I started doing anything. But I I was really thinking I was honoring myself
Mm.
while I was pushing forward. And honestly, I wasn't. And I didn't realize it at the time. I had to go through what I went through, and I had to take the steps I took. And if it took me 8 months, then it took me 8 months, and I'm still healing from it. But the thought of, I think the hardest thing is the thought of wanting another baby. I know a lot of women when they miscarry are like, yeah, let's try again, because they're so excited to be a mom and everything. And I was like, I killed my baby. Like, and that was kind of my thought. And I was like, I don't want to go through that again. Like, I don't want to feel this again. And so the biggest struggle for me has been getting into a mindset of, am I ready to have another and try again? So it's definitely been time, but also really getting to a point where I am ready to try again. Um,
Mm.
so
Well, that's exciting.
yeah.
That's a great shift. Yeah, and I know I had interviewed someone on an earlier episode that had said some of the things that people say are a real trigger point. And, oh, well, you're young, you could just have another one, get over it. What would you say to somebody like that?
I was that person before I miscarried. And not the get over it part. I would never tell somebody who was hurting to get over it. I might in a more gentle way say something similar, because sometimes people will hold on to things and they really need to learn how to process through, and not get over it, but move forward from it. And so I actually had a friend who a few months before that had a miscarriage, and everybody's like, I'm so sorry. And I was sorry too. Like, I felt bad, but I didn't understand that when you are pregnant, you have this like instant bond with your child, this instant love, this instant protection, this instant like, this is mine and I will protect at all cost. And
Mhm.
I love with all of me. And I didn't know that was a thing. um, and so I I keep having like brain farts. I'm sorry. Um, okay, so I just didn't know how to take that. I was like, oh no, when I had that, sorry. Okay, let me back up a bit. Now I got my thoughts straight. I had before I found out I was pregnant, I had actually been freaking out and I had been having all these emotions that I didn't understand. Like, I was just so protective and like I was getting defensive and I was like, no. And it was like insane. I was like, why am I this way? Like, why am I so emotional and so afraid? I had this fear. And then I found out I was pregnant and it made sense. I was just like being super protective of what was inside of me that I didn't know was inside of me yet. And so I was able to look back at my friend and I messaged her and I was like, I'm really sorry that I wasn't as nurturing and loving and understanding of what was going on, because I didn't know that when you become pregnant that you're instantly bonded with this child. And so like having that feeling and knowing that, like, I would say to a person, like, if you've never been pregnant, you don't understand that baby may not be, you know, a actual child yet because you haven't birthed it, or you may not be that far along, to where they've grown that much and they're just um not an embryo. There's something before an embryo, or maybe it is an embryo and then something else. But that's still a living creature inside of you that's growing, that you are bonded with and connected with and love and is a part of you. And I also learned that their DNA connects to your DNA like instantly. And so, and even after birth, like like it changes your DNA when you're pregnant because you have part of your child's DNA in you. And so I would just tell a person to, be mindful of the thought of loving and caring for something so much, and having that literally change who a person is inside from the moment of conception, and just keep that in mind, as they're helping a person heal,
Yeah.
and that it takes time. Okay, here
Mhm.
I am 8 months later and it still can affect me and I still have moments, and I'm just now starting to get my feet going forward, in a way that I feel like me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really important because when you can identify, the why and like acknowledge it and receive it rather than repel it, because we're all taught, well, you just get over it, you don't need to worry about this, just, distract yourself, focus on something else, and oh, you'll get pregnant again, you'll do this, but well, yeah, maybe that's not what you want to do, and or maybe not right now, and no, and just giving ourselves permission to grieve the process and to heal from it at our own pace. And I don't think we ever understand why a baby is miscarried. I mean, and I never thought of the perspective of blaming the mom, you know, that I haven't heard that before. So that's an interesting perspective, because it's like, well, I did it. It's something I did. And it's probably not, because there's babies that survive huge trauma that a mom will go through. I mean, just thinking about the crisis in Ukraine right now, that there's refugees who are pregnant that are fleeing, and the stress that that has on their bodies, and those babies will grow full term. And you can look at it from a Christian point of view. One person told me when I work, my niche is working with women post-abortion, miscarriage, and loss of a child. and using the power, the therapeutic power of aroma cognitive behavior to have them be aligned with their heart agreements. Because a lot of times what happens, especially post-abortion, is you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your intuition because you've made some mistakes, and you do blame yourself. You look in the mirror and you're like, nope, it's my fault. I did this. Or maybe you have external factors telling you, people telling you, or maybe you're a people pleaser and you're like waiting to get that love and that support from other people, and you don't have it. So then you turn to self-sabotage. Whatever the reason, we look at that and we blame ourselves, and then we don't want to move forward, and we stay stuck in that past. And being a Christian, I really struggled with that, because scripture says to give thanks in all circumstances. Well, what could you possibly give thanks for? And at first I was hesitant to work with post-abortion women, miscarriage and loss of a child, because it's a different experience. It's not the same. And to me, having 2 abortions myself, I made that choice, and a miscarriage is not a choice. A miscarriage was out of your control, completely did not happen. And my mom, I wasn't even supposed to be born, because my mom had a pregnancy before me, and she was 4 months pregnant. And, back in the 60s, late 60s, they didn't have the technology they have now. She ended up having a tumor, and it I don't know what happened. Gangrene set in, the baby died from that. And I didn't realize until she was much older. I mean, she passed away now in October of 18. She blamed herself for that. And she was able to, they did the surgery, they cut open her stomach and laid the baby on top of her stomach. And she woke up and she had this dead baby on her. And she said, she was very descriptive. My mom didn't have a filter. She's like me, no filter. Very descriptive about what it was like. And she says he was a boy, and he had really, really dark hair. And, she named him Christopher James. And they told her she would never have kids again. And she wanted a little girl so bad. And when she got pregnant for me, she thought for sure, something bad was going to happen because, of her health conditions. And then she loves telling the story that when I was born, not only did I have a ton of hair, the nurses were going crazy and putting putting white bows in my black hair, but I screamed at the top of my lungs, bloody murder. And she said she'll never forget that scream. And she couldn't figure out, why I was such a screamer. But she ended up being a foster care mom, thinking that she couldn't have any more children. And she adopted my brother, who's a year older than me. And his name is James. His birth mom was 15 when she had him. And she named him James Christopher. And I thought, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And I was remembered, like, I completely forgot about that. And when I was talking, I think it was in one of the sessions that we did, because you have a very powerful aroma session using different visuals and our inner child work, where I had connected with that a couple of days after the session. And I was just like, they are related, because it's the same sense of loss, even though I chose it. I didn't choose it based on my own heart-centered decision. I chose it based on thoughts that I received from the person I was with, from the worldview, from what I thought, people were going to say about me if I'm, 16 years old and I'm pregnant, and, the labels that I would have carried. It was all about me, and I was told that the baby was a blob, that there was, and you had mentioned something about that, like, at one stage they're an embryo, but they're before that. And I was quick. Like I got my period every 28 days. I knew the day I was pregnant. Like when the day I did not get my period, I was like, I'm pregnant. I knew it, because I never, ever missed my period. And I was like, I told the guy, and he's like, oh, well, abortion. Like, oh, and I would have kissed the ground he walked on. He said, jump. I said, how high? I mean, that's how absorbed I was into this person. And, when he said have an abortion, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, okay. And I didn't research it. I didn't want to know about it. And I was told that it was a blob from the place that I had gone to. And I was just like it was a tumor. And ironically, that word came back with my mom. And I thought, oh, full circle. So what we bury, what we reveal heals, and what we conceal doesn't. So on that note, you are using that same process with your current business that you're doing. Tell us what you're doing now with your current business, what you've transformed into based on your experience. And I know you've gone through a lot of growth in the last 8 months.
Yes. So I will say, after I did reach out for help, that is a big thing that I teach women who are understanding that their past childhood trauma is affecting them, is to ask for help and support, because so often we feel alone with our feelings and what we're feeling, and we feel ashamed of what we're feeling, and we honestly, we punish ourselves deep down because of everything that we went through as a child. And so as we grow and heal, I tell them to ask for help, ask for support. That's a huge thing that I didn't do before, was asking for support and help and understanding how I felt and making sure that honestly, that I wasn't crazy. So, like, I wasn't the only one that felt this way. And so I really try to help women see that they're not the only one struggling on the inside with this inner war. So many of us are. And so I made sure to ask for support. I reached out to friends and family quite a bit. And on days that was really hard, even when I didn't want to, because I was like, I don't want to burden them. I don't want to, whatever it is that we make up in our heads. And I still reached out and was like, I feel guilty. And I told them exactly, like, I feel guilty reaching out, but like, today is really hard. And I don't understand it. Like, I want to give up, or I'm really angry, or whatever it is that I was feeling. I would explain, and I explain things in detail, like stories. I will go on, and people are like, I get the point. And I'm like, but I'm not done explaining. And so reach out for support. Nowadays, what I'm doing, I'm not coaching per se. My coaching programs and stuff, I've taken a step back from, just because honestly, I have a fear that if I get pregnant again, that I will not be able to support the women the way that I want to. And I want to make sure that I am good completely before I start helping women on that level again. But I am helping women with using aromatherapy and essential oils to heal. And I do coach per se when I do get a new customer with my oils, and I help them know what they could use based on them. My intuition is phenomenal. I'm an empath. I could feel things. I just know what people need, and I help women to see what they need. And I help support them as they start to heal, and give them that person that can be support and guide them, and empower them to be their own advocate and empower themselves and heal themselves. So,
Well, that's beautiful. And I know that you have helped quite a few people, and it's just so wonderful to have that modality in place, and to step out and create those custom packages so that people can go through that process and know that they're not alone, because it's so important. Because I know a lot of women are afraid, and to have that safe space, that non-judgmental space for a woman to come to. What's the best way to reach you? I know you're an Instagram girl.
yes, IG definitely. My handle for Instagram is at frankly Nikki. I share inspiration, motivation, and I really like helping women who are entrepreneurial minded overcome their trauma to build their business, and using the aromatherapy. So I'm on there, and I'm in the middle of creating a free guide for all the lovelies out there to use and start understanding how oils help them heal and what oils to use. So emotions and essential oils.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and all the different things, and what great insight. So if anyone listening wants to connect with Nikki, check her out on Instagram. The links are going to be in the description. Feel free to reach out to her directly, ask any questions she can have. She can look up all kinds of stuff and give you the support, and you can, I'm sure she'll be willing to hop on a call with you and go into detail, because she's really got a beautiful gift for this. And when
Thank
she
you.
says she's got great intuition, she does. So definitely. And if you know someone that would resonate with Nikki's story, please share this with them, have them reach out. What we reveal truly does heal. And when we can get our thoughts, when we captivate our thoughts, if you think of thoughts as a person and they came knocking on your door, would you let them in? When we can receive our thoughts and understand what they mean instead of repelling them, we're going to get healing so much faster, because mindset connected to our heart work really makes us move mountains. We get the shifts that we need. Mindset is the crux of all that we do. It's a matter of the heart.